Hey, g'day everyone, Skarvig here, and we have a update to Atlas. They're introducing a new customizable ship with the modular system called the Mortar ship. And it basically has a front and rear mortar cannon sitting on the ship. It's supposed to do heavy damage to land installments, and at the same time is quite a slow ship, so that other ships being quite mobile will have quite the advantage on basically sinking it. And so they're trying to work on those various different cookie cutter builds that people, if you bring your mortar ship, you also need to think about the strategies that will go with that, because the other ships are going to be quite a hard counter to the mortar ship, whereas the mortar ship itself will be the hard counter to land. And it'll be interesting to see how those strategies play out into people's and how people end up using it. There are a ton of fixes in this particular one. I think the list of fixes and for this is actually larger than the list of updates. But we should probably jump straight into it. And the first thing off the rank is actually a new home region map. Now, with this, I actually thought, well, I was reading, I'm like, oh, what's a home region map? Does that, like, did they give us a little instance world where we get a little home region and we can play around with that? But no, that's not actually what it is. I ended up looking up what home region meant, and it's the biome map. Basically, it shows you what are the different biomes across each of the various different grids. It's home region, sure, I probably would just straight up call it a biome map. But yeah, you get to see where the tropics, the temperate, the polar, the desert, and the golden age ruins sit within the biomes, and you know, where you might want to be targeting, where you want to go. But that is the home region map. So the new ship variant itself, the Mortar ship, apparently it's a comparable size to the schooner. And both the front and rear castles have the new mortar type, which deal obviously massive damage at great distance. 22,000 gold, 200 gunpowder. So in terms of the resource required to build it, being gunpowder, it's very simple to access compared to the Majestic Kraken and the ramming ship, which both require a specialised resource from dropping from a creature, being the dried squid tentacles and the rhino horns. So this one's a lot easier to access compared to those other ones, although later on we'll basically read that they're looking at rejigging the cost of these, so we'll have to wait and see how it goes. But then there is a new shipyard type, an advanced shipyard, which you'll learn from the expert shipwright, and you'll basically build it from the smithy. And the advanced shipyard basically will only build the specialized variants, so the Majestic Kraken, the ramming ship, and now this new mortar ship. You will only be able to build them from the advanced shipyard. You still have your regular large shipyard and your small shipyard, which will do the old ships, so that's still available. So new buff icons have been added for the Atlantean Spire, Industrial Generator, and the Army of the Damn Pylon. So when you own those areas, the sea forts, and you put down a pylon, you'll actually see a buff in the top right with your ship's health. Rather than down on the bottom right where you normally see your character buffs, it'll actually be on the ship. And they've added new blueprints, which will be for the railings and midship for the modular system, and they've added a farm blueprint variation as well. Beyond that, as I said before, the shipyard, the advanced shipyard has been added. They obviously, the Freeport Merchant, which previously did it, they're basically looking to get that removed in the near future, because obviously we now have the advanced shipyard, so that will replace it in the long run. And as I also said, they're looking to change the resources of all three ships in the future. And I do wonder if they'll keep the specialized resource, the horns, the dried tentacles, and whether they'll go for a bit more of a common resource, or whether the mortar ship is meant to be a cheap one and the others are meant to be expensive. I'm not entirely certain, but the mortar ship seems to be very cheap compared to the other two. Anyway, up next is a very long list of bug fixes. So ship houses and shipyards are no longer well placeable in the open ocean. Song of the Sea food recipe no longer crashes when the game is selected. Sextants compasses will no longer disappear when you're changing grids. Fix the instances of stacking buffs from the buff towers. Players can no longer place one sea fort buff tower per sea fort regardless of type. So can now only place one sea fort tower type. Fix the placement of multiple resource generating structures in the same region. I heard about that one. People were just spamming bloody farmyards and lumber yards all over the place. It's good to see that fix is coming in. When interacting with certain parts of the ship, players will no longer crash. Consuming certain foods gives the proper hunger values. allowed spearbolt ammo to be stored in munition storage. UI fixes the player shop. Adjusted radius of discovery zones. Fixed weight or not being registered and items being dropped from saddles. Fixed instances of crude tool causing players to crash. Fixed instances of large stone walls being placed on tables. Large stone foundations snapping incorrectly. Ammo containers reach fluctuating on ships. Placeable objects preventing damage to players on swivel guns. Which honey has not harvestable? Fixed instances in which honey was not okay, people were not harvesting honey. The wording there is just a little bit painful. Fixed instances of which ships could not anchor in docks in which trading was being used for unintended actions. Really? Fixed instances in which trading was being used for unintended actions. I wonder if that was the untyped variants of the resources. You get a lot of plain resources and they was just flooding my warehouse. And I suspect that that's maybe what they're talking about there. It's not very clear what was the unintended action, but I guess it's gone now, so whatever the unintended thing, hopefully it won't be a thing anymore. We don't know whether it was good or bad, but it's gone. Fixed frame rate drops when painting large sails or walls. Arrow hit detection improvements. Okay, sounds good. I have noticed sometimes when you're shooting that it doesn't register even though it's quite clearly hit several times. PvE, they fix instances of using specific feats for unintended actions. Army of the Damned no longer spawn inside buildings. And my personal favourite, the single player map fix. And I'm basically on the single player at the moment while I'm reading a lot of this stuff. I'm still seeing something wrong with my player. When I first did the update, my player, I had to keep recreating it, so I ran a verify over the top. But yeah, you can check out my other video on how to fix single player maps, because it's not so much a fix for single player, but you can actually use the server grid editor to create your own single player maps. And so when Atlas put these patches out and maybe put in some map changes that breaks the single player map, you can always use the server grid editor to create your own single player map, and you can use that to play around on in single player as you see fit, until they do actually get around to putting the fixes in for the single player. But yeah, it's good to have it in there, and I could see there was some of the trade winds was actually in there as well, which was nice to see. Okay, some miscellaneous stuff. Players will now receive the right variant of crops depending on the source. The removed biome requirements for breeding creatures. That was a very interesting one to read when I saw that the first time around. Yeah, prior to that you had to make sure that the creature was being bred in the right spot. And I remember creating a house on the bay. Basically had a floating house on pillars, or basically a house on pillars inside my bay, and I was trying to breed creatures, but the biome inside that area is considered ocean, and as a result I couldn't actually breed the creatures there, and I had to actually take them back to land to breed them. And so such a thing might actually be possible now. Next up, they're planning on removing the stone farmhouse, which kind of makes sense because you don't need two variants of the farmhouses, given that all the other automation buildings only have a single variant. We're keeping all the currently placed stone farmhouses, but otherwise in the future it's just going to be gone. They do say it will be reintroduced in the future patch, so maybe there's a plan for that down the track, but I don't really see the need for it unless it's going to do something else. The ramming galley now produces sounds, and buff towers values have been adjusted. So Puckle Tower updates. They've normalised the ammo consumption, they've decreased the weight of the Puckle Tower itself, they've increased the fuel stack size on the Puckle Tower, and fixed instances of which the firing sound was not playing correctly, and the accuracy has been adjusted. Lastly, known issues: the advanced shipyards are placeable on shores, so that when you release the ship, your ship will be destroyed. Very important to know, because if you go to the trouble of spending 22,000 gold, you're going to want to know that your ship isn't going to destroy itself. Whales and ships of the damned have low spawn and drop rates, so that's important to note. I've actually seen quite a fair bit of commentary around the fact that whales don't seem to spawn enough for the rate at which they're actually killed. So it's good that it's known. When the fix for that will actually come out, I'm not entirely certain. And the very last thing, visual issues with character when manning new mortars. Okay, so that's basically something for the new ship. Yeah. Very interesting to see this set of patch notes. As I said, there's a hell of a lot of fixes, and a lot of it was to do with crashes and unintended use of some of the buildings. Yeah, nice to see that they're back on track. And as much as I'm in the, I'm on the playtesting side of things under a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't actually talk about what I'm actually seeing on the test server that I actually help out on, albeit that I don't get to test too much due to the time I actually get to put in. What I'm seeing is the engagement level between Grapeshot and the testing crew is rising, and it's actually really good to see. So I feel like there's a renewed energy between how all of this stuff is happening, and so hopefully that will play out and we'll actually see the patches start coming back to that 2-weekly schedule, but I'm not entirely certain. We'll have to wait and see. I'm hopeful for it because yeah, the rhetoric that I'm actually seeing going on in the background looks really, really good. It's just that I can't really talk too much about it, other than to say that I feel that it's actually going well. Lastly, we'll move on to the next part where I'm going to basically build myself one of these new mortar ships, and I want to see what it looks like. Okay, let's check this out. Spawned in all the stuff necessary. We want a mortar ship. Let's see what we get. Well, we got the ship alright. Oh, you have to climb. Okay. That's a mortar, not being manned at all. You can go inside. Oh wow. You also get 8 cannons. Not manned, obviously. That's fine. Let's get up the top and have a look what's up here. You got a nice little house. Oh, it's actually pre-built with a little bit of shelter, albeit that you can probably still be sniped through these windows, really. And then the last cannon on the back. Very good. Right. Bank. Can't see damage numbers, too far away. Whoa. Things exploded though. I wonder if I'm... No, I'm not too far away. Here comes the cannon fire. Whoa, boom. So I'm guessing I should probably try and back up even further if I'm going to take towers on. Wibble wobble ship. See if we can sink the ship as well. One tower down. So that back tower doesn't appear to be able to reach me, which is nice. And once I've killed this front tower, we'll... Oh, there we go. I've killed the front tower. So that back tower is aiming at me, can't hit me, and yeah, I can quite comfortably hit it if I can aim properly. Still can't see the relevant damage numbers, which is a little bit of a pain. It's interesting, I've got the 235 ammo, so it's actually pulling from my ammo box. But I couldn't get the NPCs to do this. Use the mortar. Attack. Let's see if I open up my... Yeah, open up the bays. Attack. So it looks like the NPCs can't actually fire the mortars. which is a little bit of a shame. But so be it. Alright. Interesting ship. Obviously, it'll have its utility. Yeah, with the boxy shape, what I don't like, I've actually worked it out. Obviously, there's the clean cut edges at the back there that I don't particularly like, but it's actually the top-down profile, right? So the edges of the ship are dead straight up and down. When normally, like at the bottom, when it meets the water there, you can see the curve of the ship as it goes under the water. When I see ships, I instinctively feel like I want to see that curve that you would normally see with an old ship, or a sail ship of that sort of type. These boxy style ships, it actually reminds me of things like the coal loaders and the container ships that you actually see coming into like the port of Newcastle where I live. So it's almost like a modern take on what should be a historical ship, or at least a ship look in my mind. I shouldn't say that it has to be that way. They have created it this way, and this is what we've got. But yeah, I would have loved to have seen the edges just a little bit softened and not had it quite so angular. But yeah, it's... Ooh, K mode. Get out of K mode. It's full stop. Let's pop out of the ship. Get up onto the top deck. Whee! What was that? Who knows? Alright, here we are in the moonlight and an eerie face that I have. But there you go. Latest set of patch notes. Hopefully you found the patch notes useful, interesting. I'm finding that hopefully the renewed patches, now that they're coming back out, now that the patches are coming back out again, and what I'm seeing on the test server in terms of interactions that I'm seeing there, I'm hoping that we'll get back on track for like fortnightly updates. That would be just fantastic. And hopefully we'll start seeing maybe even the QAs and all that sort of stuff pop back up again soon too. The dev blogs, hopefully we'll see more of those. And with the renewed interest and the renewed interaction, maybe we'll see good things in the future. Alright. Hope, once again, thank you for listening into Skarvig in the Atlas. And I'll see you in the next one. See you later.